Now, a few months ago, I made a video detailing how to build a Pokemon deck if you're getting into the game for the first time. It ended up being one of my favorite things I've ever done on this channel. I got to interact with, I've literally replied to thousands of people, helping them with their decks. The video itself has had over 70,000 views. Just having that kind of impact and helping new players into the game is honestly, obviously this channel is here just to teach people games. So yeah, I can't put it into words, but thank you for, if you liked it or shared it or commented. It really did help the video take off, and it's just an amazing feeling. So I wanted to continue that. In that video, there was a lot of people asking for the same Pokemon. So there was Pikachus, Charizards, Umbreons, the more popular Pokemon. So in this video, I'm going to take a look at 5 of the most popular Pokemon. If you want to play more competitively, these first 5 are going to be a mix. So they're going to be good, they're going to be fun, and somewhere in between. So let's get into the decks and take a look. The Pokemon I've picked are Charizard, Umbreon, Pikachu, Gengar, which is my personal favorite, as you can see up here. Oh, wrong side. I forget the camera's flipped, as you can see up here. And finally, the 5th one is going to be a surprise. So if you want to see that, make sure you stick around. A little cheeky, but let's get into the first one. We're going to take a look at Charizard first. So obviously, most importantly, you're going to start with a Charizard here. You got 4 of the Charmanders, 1 Charmeleon, and 3 Charizards. The reason for the lack of Charmeleons is normally in any deck which has a stage 2 like Charizard, you'll run Rare Candy, which basically skips the middle evolution. So you could evolve straight from Charmander into Charizard. So it's sort of like there's 5 Charmeleon almost. You do get to skip that stage, which is normally you can evolve Charmander next turn, Charmeleon next turn, Charizard. This lets you go Charmander straight into Charizard on that second turn the Charmander's in play. So pretty powerful. Other than that, we've got some consistency cards. So we've got stuff like Pidgey and Pidgeot. Pidgeot has a really powerful ability where it can just find any card you need. So let's say at some point in the game you need a boss's orders, which lets you bring up a Pokemon from your opponent's bench. You just go find it. Let's say you need an energy, you go find it, or a Pokemon to evolve, you just go find it. It's very powerful. It helps your deck, as I say, with its consistency, makes it run a little easier, which is why that card's in here. If you're a Gen 1 fan, obviously this deck is ideal. You get your Charizards, you get your Pidgeots, 2 very big Pokemon from the first gen. There is also another Charizard, Radiant Charizard, which can attack very cheaply later on in the game once your opponent's taken some prizes. You don't really need this, but it has got an Arceus V and V-Star. Again, gives us a second attacker, but also some consistency with Starbirth on Arceus V-Star. Again, just finding any cards we need when we need them. So this deck is super consistent, which isn't usual for a stage 2. Normally stage 2 can feel quite clunky because you need to run so many cards to make them work. Like I mentioned, there's 8 of the actual Pokemon, and then you've got 4 Rare Candy. That's a lot of slots already taken up in your deck. Other than that, it's just general support stuff, so research and Iono, so draw cards and disruption. We've got 4 Ultra Ball, which I would say is standard in pretty much any deck these days. And yeah, there's nothing else stand out here. You got a few switching cards, more search cards with Nest Ball and VIP Pass. Other than that, you've got the energy. We do have 2 Turbo Energy, so you can get Arceus V-Star powered up quicker. But normally we can just use Charizard's ability, and it is going to be Charizard attacking with that powerful attack as it gets stronger as the game goes. So this is a fairly competitive list. I don't take this as gospel. This is just a list I've picked up just to show you how the deck works. But this is an idea. You can always change stuff around. But if you're looking at playing Charizard, then Obsidian Flames has just come out, so it's the perfect time to use him. Next up, we've got everyone's favorite electric mouse, Pikachu. As you can see, tons of yellow on the screen, tons of electric Pokemon. So we've got Flying Pikachu in this case, as that is probably the best version of Pikachu out there. Evolves into the VMax, and when it attacks, it can't be damaged by basic Pokemon. So that already gives you a massive advantage in matchups. We've also got Raichu, so if you're into Pikachu, you probably like Raichu as well, so there's a lot of cool Pokemon you'll enjoy in this. Miraidon just helps with consistency. It lets you find out your electric Pokemon. Raikou, very powerful. Zoroark, very similar. There's a few other attacking options there, so you've got different options within electric to attack with. But you can just use the Pikachu, which is why we're building this deck. You can put more Pikachu in and take some other stuff out. There's plenty of options. We've got the Mareep and Flaffy, which lets you accelerate energy from your discard pile. We've got 14 energy, so we're not going to be running out of that. The reason we've got so much energy in this deck is Electric Generator. So that lets you look at the top 5 and you can take 2 and attach them. It's a good way to get more energy into play very quickly, so you can get set up turn 1, which is quite rare for decks. Other than that, it's just a ton of cards to draw cards or either disrupt your opponent. This deck is very consistent. There's very few cards. There's just big count of good cards you need. There's 4 Beach Core in the deck, so you can retreat your Pokemon for free. Or basic Pokemon, Pikachu retreats for free anyway, so pretty much the whole deck can retreat other than Flaffy, which is why we have got a few switching cards as well. Obviously, the Stadium can also be knocked out of play, so it's good to have those. We've also got Bravery Charm, so you can make your Miraidon or your Raichu, Raikou, Zeraora, or just basic Flying Pikachu have more health. 50 HP extra is always good. But yeah, just a fairly consistent list, and yeah, if you like electric Pokemon, this is a good skeleton that you can just sort of change the Pokemon in this, but keep the other cards the same. Tends to work really well. It's just a good idea for electric Pokemon in general. Next up, we've got Umbreon, and in this one, it is paired with Duraludon. So the idea here is Umbreon's used for its ability, which lets you pull up Pokemon from the bench, which is a very powerful ability. Obviously, you can choose what you're going to be knocking out. Duraludon, very powerful Pokemon, hits for a ton of health, or a ton of damage I should say, has an incredible ability where you can't be damaged by Pokemon with special energy, stuff like Turbo Energy, and there's a lot of decks that do use that, so there's stuff like Lugia, which is entirely special energy, so it's just a very powerful ability. And then obviously, again, for consistency, to set up our Pokemon, we've got Arceus V-Star. So you can switch out, as I say again here, Arceus just gives you a ton of options. You can switch out Duraludon for someone else if you're not a fan. Because Arceus can attach 3 of any energy, you can use any other type. So this, again, is a perfect skeleton list if you want to use Umbreon and Glaceon or Leafeon. You can choose any of the other evolutions, any other Pokemon. It's entirely up to you. But this is just a good starting point. Again, cards you've seen before here. This is a competitive list I've picked up here just to give you some idea. So some of these cards are tech cards and I wouldn't necessarily use them if you're just getting started. Like Panic Mask, I'd say don't bother with. Radiant Alakazam, Spiritomb, stuff like that. Volo, I would take those cards out and replace them with just up the counts of other stuff. So Research, your Ionos, your Judges. Just increase those counts, and as you're happy with them, then you can lower them and change out for more tech cards to help you in matchups you struggle with. And that's always the best way to build a deck. Start with high counts of stuff, slowly lower them as you get comfortable, and then you can add in those cards that really help you win some matchups you weren't winning before. But again, Lumineon is another great addition. It just lets you find out a supporter. Other than that, it's all fairly standard stuff we've seen before. Hopefully in other videos. If you've not seen the original video, make sure you go back and check that, as this will all make a little more sense. But if you're getting started, again, a very good skeleton list for Arceus. He attaches to V Pokemon, so as long as they're V, VMax, V-Stars, you're absolutely fine. Find any combination of Pokemon you want, put the energies in, and you are good to go. Now, my favorite Pokemon of all time, hands down, we've got Gengar and Gengar VMax. So in this case, we're using Houndoom to attach the Single Strike Energy. Single Strike Energy lets you deal an additional 20 damage. So you can do 60 for each V in play. So that can add up. Obviously, there's a lot of Vs in format still. Mew, there's Lugia, there's... I would say most decks are, to be fair. There's Palkias, Giratina. Yeah, it's just all Vs at the minute. Until it fully transitions over to EX, Gengar is still going to be a good card. So it does 60 for each in play on your opponent's side. So that can add up very quickly. And obviously with the Single Strike Energy as well. 20 per energy, so that's, yeah, it adds up very, very quickly. So Gengar can be a monster. It can also just attack for 250. Obviously, with those single strike, you could get up to a potential 330, which is a knockout on anything in format. This deck also does focus on some disruption. So you've got, at this time, it was Marnie. Obviously, Marnie's rotated now. So I'll just say replace those with Iono. It's got Tool Jammer, again, a very disruptive card, one that just turns off their items, their tools I should say. We've got Path to the Peak, which just turns off abilities. So yeah, this deck is heavily focused on disruption and just hitting for a ton of damage, honestly. Another Pokemon there, Crobat, has gone. Just replace it with something like a Squawkabilly. I would potentially take that out and maybe replace it with some other attackers, honestly. You could use something like Urshifu, or yeah, you could just put in more consistency cards like a Squawkabilly. Just a very concise list. Again, a lot of 4 copies of stuff, so you're not running many cards. You're just running heavy copies of the stuff you need. because Gengar can deal with a lot of stuff, especially that 250. Combination with hiding energy, you can retreat because you can't attack the turn after you've used it. You can just retreat and then attack with a different one. So yeah, this deck is very compact, very consistent, and very powerful. Now here we go, the deck I really wanted to share. We've got Zoroark. Now, if you're not a Zoroark fan, bear with me. If you know Zoroark at all, it turns into a Pokemon, and they've mimicked that perfectly in the card game. So any stage 1 Pokemon in your discard pile, this Zoroark can turn into. That's why you see all of these stage 1s with no basic Pokemon. We are just going to turn into them via Zoroark, and then use stuff like Super Rod and Clara to get those Pokemon back, or Zoroark's back, and just redo it again. So the idea behind this deck is you got the Curlier to throw stuff away, so you can get those Pokemon into the discard. You've got stuff like Ultra Ball and Research and Serena, just to throw the cards away, so they're in the discard so you can use them. We've got Path to the Peak for some disruption, so to turn off V abilities or rule box abilities. We don't have any rule boxes, so it's perfect for this deck. Some energy, we've got Gift, we've got Reversal, we've got Turbo. I'm still not sure on the energy of this one. This really is just sort of, again, a skeleton list, so you can literally switch any of these stage 1s out, and I think that's why this is a good list to show you. If you're just getting into the game, it's ideal. Every time a new set comes out, you can look at all the stage 1s, say, oh, I like this Pokemon, I'm going to put it into my deck, I'm going to switch it with this. This deck is something you can take through every set coming out and just update it. I think it's ideal because you're not spending a ton of money, which is always a bonus, but it also can compete, because if you take a look, you're hitting for every weakness. So some of the main decks, Arceus, you can hit with Wormadam. Shenpao, you can hit with Wormadam. Charizard, the new terrestrial one, you can hit with Wormadam. Got 3 different types there, so we can hit for all of those weaknesses. We have got Braixen, which hits for 60 for each Serena in your discard, so that means 240 potentially. It's always good just to have one that can hit for a big number without needing weakness, because you're not always going to get it, but most of the time you should really. You've got Mightyena, which is dark, obviously hitting stuff like Mew for weakness and taking easy knockouts on VMAXs. We've got Flapple, which does 50 times each ability on your opponent's side. Again, that can rack up very quickly in the metagame. We've got Ambushing Spark from Raichu, which can take knockouts on Palkias. It can take knockouts on Lugias. There's a ton of good uses for that. And one of my favorite cards in the game, Slowbro from Pokemon Go. It has Twilight Inspiration. You can use this attack only if your opponent has exactly 1 prize remaining. You take 2 prizes. So it's a good way to finish out the game, as they can only ever take 1 prize. Unless they get going with like a Greninja knockout on the final turn. This is why we run Manaphy. There's still a chance you get beaten. I don't think it's particularly good into like Shenpao, even though we do hit for weakness. They run normally 2 canceling clones just to turn Manaphy off. But that's getting into the metagame. This can just be a very fun deck. Like I say, you can choose all of your favorite stage 1s, throw them in this deck and just get going. It really is one of my favorite decks, and I think it is an ideal way to get into the Pokemon TCG. But that's the video. Hopefully these have helped. Again, I just want to say a massive thank you for all of the support with the Pokemon stuff. Honestly, I know I'm trying to help you guys with these videos, but it's meant a lot more to me, so I do really appreciate that, so thank you. That's all I've got for this episode. If you want to see more Pokemon stuff, tabletop stuff, board games, card games, miniatures games, make sure you subscribe. It's all I've got for this one though, so I will catch you in the next one.